We are recording now.
Okay, well, sorry about that, everyone, but there's still a few more people coming in. But in the interest of time, and you've dedicated a half an hour of your Wednesday night to us, we wanted to get it started. Thank you for spending your Wednesday with us. I'm Jennifer Buchanan, and I'm with the Newmarket Chamber. And these are our weekly events as part of our virtual home and lifestyle showcase. So they're free to Chamber members as well as to the public. So we encourage you to share it with friends and let people know, because we've had some great ones. We've already done gardening, wine and beer class, interior decorating, and now tonight it is absolutely everything you need to know to get your lawn in tip-top shape. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we will try to get to them as quickly as we can and to as many as we can. And with that, I will pass it along now to our special guest tonight. It's Kendra Kiss of On Par Turf. Take it away, Kendra.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and welcome everybody. Bear with me. This is my first time doing a presentation over Zoom, so I will try not to talk a whole lot. I will share my screen now and get my presentation going, but my host has disabled my screen sharing. I'll try that again. There we go. 2 seconds.
Should be good now, sorry.
That's okay, thank you. All right, everyone. So I'm gonna talk about some lawns. It's gonna be a little bit different than you're probably normally used to, but I hope everybody takes away a little something from today. So, just a little introduction about myself if you have not checked out my website. I've been in the business for 20 years. I am actually from Calgary, Alberta. Olds College is in Alberta. I graduated there in horticulture in 2006. I had started working at golf courses in 2001 as just a summer job. I was originally actually studying physiotherapy, and I fell in love with it. And I love being outside. I love being active. I'm also an active member in associations, the GCSAA, which is the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, and the Ontario Golf Course Superintendents Association. I have volunteered 3 times down at a PGA event, the Phoenix Open in Scottsdale. Unfortunately, due to COVID, I was not able to go down this year, but hopefully make a return next year. I have spent the last 10 years at Magna Golf Club, the last 5 in the role of assistant superintendent, and we were the host club in 2019 of the LPGA CP Women's Open. I've also participated in a lot of industry sponsored learning, such as the Toro Assistant Superintendent experience that allowed me to go down to Minneapolis and tour the Toro facility, as well as intermingle with a lot of big names in my industry. I'm also a very big advocate of environmental and sustainable methods, which I am going to get into as we go through tonight. So my agenda: help, my lawn is in horrible condition. I get that a lot. We're going to go over quickly plant basics, and then we're going to talk about the soil food web. I'm not sure if many of you heard of that, but it's something that has been introduced into my life in the last 5 years, which has actually opened my mind and made me really critically think about everything that I even learned going to school. We're going to talk quickly about synthetic fertility versus feeding our soil food web. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks, and then leave it up to you guys to ask me some questions. So here are a couple common questions and concerns I get. Some of you may actually have probably said these and are here listening to me because of this. I fertilize and water and aerate, but nothing seems to work. Why do I get grubs? Why do I have so many weeds? What can I do? What do I do when my neighbor doesn't look after their lawn? And I've had services in the past, but they've not worked. So back to basics. The grass plant, it is a living, breathing organism, just like you and I. It needs fertility, it needs water, it needs oxygen, and it needs the right environment to grow. When we start putting too many inputs into that or feeding it the wrong things, it's not going to grow. It's not going to be healthy. Just like you and I, same physiological type of functions in our body. If you eat McDonald's every day, you're not going to be overly healthy. If you exercise, eat properly, you're probably going to be definitely a lot strong and more resilient. Exactly the same concept with the grass. Let's go back one. So the soil food web. Soil food web is the community of organisms living all or part of their lives in the soil. Definitely an amazing concept that I had said that has come to me in the last 5 years. I'm going to present this little 5-minute video that does a really great explanation of it, plus some visuals. It is geared more towards agriculture. However, it is the exact same principle in growing your lawn. Oh, sorry.
What is the soil food web? To understand the soil food web, let's start with the term food web. We all know about the food chain, the animal kingdom on top of which are us humans, right? Well, if we look a little closer, we can see that some members of the food chain don't just eat one thing. That goes for humans too. So the reality is more like a web than a chain. This is the food web. There happens to be a food web in the soil too. This is the living part of the soil made up of insects, earthworms, and much smaller microscopic creatures such as fungi and bacteria. Dr. Elaine Ingham has pioneered research into the microorganisms in the soil over the last 4 decades and has worked with a team of research scientists to understand how they interact with each other and with plants. The soil food web can be thought of as the soil biome. Just as humans have a gut biome responsible for digesting our foods, so too the soil has a biome, which breaks down organic matter and releases nutrients in plant-available form. This is how nature has been feeding plants for billions of years. The major groups that make up the soil food web are bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and nematodes. When in balance, these different groups interact with each other and with plants to create abundant ecosystems such as the great forests of the world. Have you ever wondered how forests can be the most productive ecosystems in the world without the need for any fertilizers or pesticides? The answer lies in soil biology. With a healthy biome, the soil can provide plants with all the nutrients they need, and with a number of other benefits, such as protection from pests and diseases, protection from drought and from flooding. The soil food web is, essentially, nature's operating system. Unfortunately, we humans have disturbed the soil food web in almost all of the soils that we manage, causing it to become unbalanced. As a result, the plants we grow struggle. Plowing is the major cause of the problem, as it destroys the larger microorganisms, such as fungi and protozoa, leaving the soil food web out of balance. This results in a system breakdown. Nutrients are no longer made available to plants, and protection from diseases is compromised. Before the Industrial Revolution, humans would plow using oxen or a bull, which provided around 3 or 4 horsepower. Modern tractors can yield 400 horsepower or more. So far more damage is done to the soil biome by modern machinery. The use of chemicals has compounded the problem. The good news is that we can restore the soil food web to most soils within just a few months. This results in a number of benefits, both for farmers and for the environment. With a balanced soil food web in place, farmers need not use fertilizers at all. They don't need to use pesticides either, as nature's operating system protects plants from attack. Herbicides, used to kill weeds, are not required either, as weeds only thrive in conditions where the food web is out of balance. Restoring the soil food web means farmers save money on chemical inputs across the board. It also means that their yields increase dramatically. In some cases, farmers working with Dr. Elaine Ingham have seen yields increase by over 200%. This is because the soil food web provides plants access to a constant flow of nutrients from soil organic matter, and from the soil particles themselves. That's right, sand particles contain nutrients, and guess what? Fungi and bacteria can harvest those nutrients. They then make these available to the plant in a process that the plant actually controls. This means that plants get access to the type of nutrients they need precisely when they need them. That's how you maximize yields and optimize profits. For the environment, there is a whole host of benefits of having a balanced soil food web. Humanity is facing a number of existential threats. Let's take a look at how some of these are related to the soil. The most obvious one is soil erosion. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization has estimated that we only have around 60 years left before all the world's topsoil is depleted. Other estimates are as low as 30 years. The soil food web prevents soil erosion by both wind and water by building structure. Please watch the animation on soil structure for more information. Another existential threat we are facing is ecosystem collapse. The UN has recently stated that insect populations have been decimated by around 25% each decade for the last 30 years. That means that there are 57% less insects today than there were in 1989. Bird populations have declined by 1/3 in the last 15 years in parts of Europe. So how does the soil food web help? Well, the UN has identified the use of pesticides as a major cause in the decline of insect populations. Please watch the animation on pests and diseases to find out how nature's operating system protects plants against attack, eliminating the need for pesticides. Another threat to life on Earth is climate change. Fortunately, the soil is capable of holding tremendous amounts of carbon in the bodies of microorganisms, and some mega-organisms too. The biggest living organism in the world is not a whale, it's a fungus found in Oregon that is the size of 1,665 football fields. It is between 2,000 and 8,000 years old, and it is made mostly of carbon. By restoring the soil food web, we could put a stop to climate change. Please watch the animation on soil carbon sequestration for more details. At the Soil Food Web School, we train people like you to help farmers transition away from using chemicals to farming in harmony with nature by restoring the soil food web. For more information about the numerous benefits of the soil food web and how you can get involved, visit soilfoodweb.com.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I've been actually following Dr. Elaine Ingham for about the last 4 years. Probably this fall, I am going to be taking her program. My partner in my company, Leisha Schwab, has taken a bunch of her classes, so she is definitely a good resource for me to have. All right, we'll move on to traditional fertilizers that most people are familiar with versus feeding the soil food web. So I've given you kind of a quick breakdown. Synthetic fertilizers, to be honest, not too many advantages in my mind. You get that instant green up. I say lower cost, but before the lockdown, I was cruising through Canadian Tire, and the price of the fertilizer is actually a lot more expensive than I had anticipated. Some disadvantages of synthetic fertilizer: harms the beneficial bacteria and fungi, and the need for a proper ecosystem. It can be toxic to humans, animals. It acts as a band-aid to the actual issue of the poor soil. I have a book here. It's called The Soil Owner's Manual. And there's one part that it says, the plants in effect become nitrogen addicts, dependent on the artificial supply of nitrogen in lieu of maintaining a healthy relationship with the rest of the soil community. This not only results in poor late season performance, but can result in some of the nitrogen leaching below the root zone before it can be acquired by the soil microbes. So in essence, a lot of people have been misusing nitrogen, which is causing actually a lot of these issues in the lawns that I'm seeing. It also increases the need for water, and long-term use reduces the microbial population, disturbs the pH of the soil, and just like I said, susceptible to leaching runoff and into the water table. So feeding the soil food web, it is safe for children, pests, wildlife. I'm feeding the beneficial fungi, bacteria that play a huge role in that soil health. In improved root growth, ingredients are 100% natural. I have a list here of what I put in my mix. It's a combination of fulvic, humic acid, some calcium, magnesium, amino acids. They actually inoculate the lawn with a species of fungi called trichoderma and mycorrhizae. They form a very symbiotic relationship with the plant and help it around the root system, helping fight off disease and pests. I do throw in a form of urea, which is a form of nitrogen that mixed with the humic acid becomes readily available to the plant and used up then. And I also put in this product derived from a yucca plant, which acts as what we call a wetting agent. A wetting agent helps retain the moisture within that soil profile, so you're not having to water nearly as much.
So Kendra, can I just interject that and ask, is what you're putting, what you're talking about there, is that a concoction you put all together, or somebody that's just going out to buy something organic? Do you have anything that you recommend as well?
Yeah, this is actually, I buy these products in bulk and I do the mixing. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything out there that would be similar to this. I'm actually thinking of doing my own product line next year. Going through some greenhouses and actually talking to some greenhouse owners about this. They're very interested in it. I find that there's not a lot of products, even like as far as not competition, but variety or options to the consumer. So there are some products out there that I guess I would recommend. I was at New Roots Garden Center this past weekend, and he actually has some really good products. He had a lower grade nitrogen level fertilizer. I know a lot of people out there, the 3 numbers on the bag, it's always been nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And the old kind of thought process has been the first number on the bag, I want that to be the biggest number. And that's nitrogen, which yes, it is required by the plant, but overuse, improper use of it leads to the nitrogen kind of addict stuff that I was talking about. So if I were to find a product out in the greenhouses right now, I would try and find a number like an 1108 or something like that, or a 16312. Don't go with, like, I've seen them 3405. It is just too much nitrogen, actually ties up calcium and phosphorus and makes it unavailable to the plant. So you're having to actually supplement more in that regard. I hope that answers that question.
It does.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying not to get all nerdy and sciencey on everybody.
Okay.
So yes, and back to the water holding capacity. Disadvantages of organic lawns. The only one I can really think of, it does take time. A couple months, you would definitely see an improvement within the year. And the thing with improving that system, it's restoring it. It's Mother Nature's type of system. So essentially, you would eventually wean your lawn off. It would have the system regenerating itself. So you're not having to supplement nearly as often. We just need to get it back to that state. All right. And what can you do? Definitely consult with a professional. And when I say professional, ask for qualifications, ask if they keep up with the technology. Every single year I go to seminars, industry related. I have a lot of connections with a lot of professors down in the States, at Penn State, at Rutgers, at Michigan, that are researching this stuff constantly. So I would definitely ask these people if, you know, did you go to school? Where are you getting your information from? Be legit. Cut your lawn minimum once a week. I do recommend twice in the spring and the fall. Summer, you probably could definitely get away with once. Main thing is cut only 1/3 of the leaf blade. So if you have a 3-inch blade of grass, only take off 1 inch. If you cut any more of that, that is actually creating a stress response in the plant and weakening it. And also make sure that the blade is sharp. You're getting that, you know, slicing scissor type of action. Dull blades are going to tear the turf, again, creating that stress response. And you know, the plant is essentially having to use more nutrients to heal itself instead of actually going into the root system and getting stronger that way. Cutting height in the spring and the fall, I can deal with 2 inches. It actually creates density. In the summertime, we want 2.5 to 3 inches. And the reason being, if you kind of skip to my last point there, photosynthesis drives everything. At the end of the day, if you do not have sunlight, photosynthesis doesn't happen. You don't have that energy. So the longer we can keep the leaf blade, the more photosynthesis is going to happen, the more sugars and carbs are going to be into the roots to feed the microbes. The microbes bring the nutrients and the cycle continues. Make sure 1 inch of water is applied to the lawn per week. And I recommend applying that 1 inch in a day. Don't spread it out throughout the week. You want to water deep. Those deep watering pushes the roots down. If you only water for 20 minutes, and that's the other thing, it's more about the actual amount than the time. So if you're only watering shallow, you're only going to have shallow roots. So when we get into those heat seasons where in July, when it heats up, especially last July, it was really hot. We had a lot of issues at the golf course that I hadn't seen in 10 years. So if you had a horrible lawn last year, don't feel bad. A lot of people struggled. You want that 1 inch of water in a day, maybe over 2, to really drive those roots down. I recommend to my clients actually buying a rain gauge. You can just get them off Amazon for like 20 bucks. Put it out in your yard. Obviously, if Mother Nature supplements you with 1 inch of rain or 1/2 inch of rain, you know you can measure. You can also take a tuna can, and when you put your sprinkler out, you can put it under the sprinkler. And once that can is full, that is 1 inch of water, and you can move your sprinkler if you need to.
That's a great tip. I love it.
It's very simple, very cheap tip, but knowing how much water is going into the lawn is very key. Overseed and solid tine in the fall. I'm sure probably people are going to ask. I have a hard time with aeration. I know springtime, everybody's, oh, you aerate in the spring because it's compacted over the winter. Golf courses aerate their lawns. The golf courses aerate every year because we are constantly driving heavy equipment over those surfaces every single day. We have to. Your home lawn does not get compacted nearly as much as a golf course. And if you're going to aerate, I recommend aerating in the fall, the later part of August into September, when the temperatures cool down. You're actually going into another growth cycle. I really think aerating in the springtime is the worst time to do it. Your grass is just coming out of the winter. It is just waking up. The roots are just kind of starting to get established, and you're going to go and you're going to pull a hole. You're going to rip the root system out. You're going to create a channel for a lot of weed seeds to go into. And people kind of, I wonder why that they have a whole lot of weeds on their lawn. If you are going to aerate, I recommend what's called a solid tine. So it's just kind of spikes more than an actual core. Don't get me wrong, some soils really do need to be broken up, but regular home lawns shouldn't need that unless they've been neglected for a very long time. So the solid tining, it just creates minimal disruption. The less we can disrupt the soil, the better. So apply products that enhance the soil. So you're feeding the soil, not feeding the plant. Spring and fall cleanup are very important to get all that dead kind of material up. In the fall time, feel free to mulch your the leaves, as long as they're not in really huge piles and they're kind of caked on top of the lawn. That's free fertilizer. That's nitrogen. If you have those microbes in the soil, they're going to eat that up, decompose it, and give it to your lawn. Japanese beetle traps, definitely a huge thing. I do nematode applications for the grubs. So there's 2 times in the spring and in the fall that we would apply those if you've had them in your lawn. Definitely when the adults are flying around, put those pheromone traps out. It's it's really hard to control them. We still get them on the golf course. It doesn't matter how healthy your turf is. If they're in that area and they're like feeding on a plant, they usually tend to like clematis, those type of plants. They're going to go lay their eggs in the easiest place, the closest place in anybody's lawn. So
And where would you get one of those from, Kendra?
you can get them from garden centers. They're just kind of like this green hanging bag with this yellow, it almost looks like a whirly bird thing at the bottom. And it's just pheromones, and then just hang them out kind of in the areas that you're seeing a lot of them fly around in.
Okay, we're running out of time, and I got questions flying in here. So do you want to get to so we get a couple of quick questions in?
Absolutely. This was my last slide, and I just wanted to reiterate, photosynthesis drives everything. So and that is it. And there's my contact information. Reach out to me anytime. And let's go with some questions.
Okay, awesome. No, great information. So I'm going to work my way back up. So the most recent one is foot traffic area. What can someone do where there's high traffic to try and keep it healthy and green?
Definitely that solid tine aeration and putting some compost mix down. And just getting that soil biology back together. Once that biology is in the soil, it actually creates natural channels for air, water, gas exchange type of movement. But yeah, just that solid tine in the fall once a year would be my recommendation.
What to do for watering if your grass is basically on sand?
Yeah, it can be tough. I know they are very sandy soils around here, but getting, again, that biology back into your soil, that biology creates what's called a crumb structure. So that those microbes go into that sand, which is actually good because it's got nutrients attached to those sand particles. And it eventually, it creates like a humus type. So it actually starts to change the soil structure and create that water holding ability.
Weeds between interlock. Ugh, my nemesis, right? And obviously you don't use pesticides or chemicals anymore. I've heard so many different things, hot water and add this, but do you have any tips or tricks when it comes to that?
Unfortunately, like the stuff that I've been able to get access to at the golf course, we do have our Roundup that we use very, very sparingly, but there are products, there's like a horticulture vinegar, which is, people, so vinegar is acetic acid. Your table vinegar is 5% acetic acid. This horticulture vinegar is 25% acetic acid. So it's definitely a higher concentrate. I've been using a product called Phenolsin. It's kind of it's an industrial type of soap, or that's the mixture it is. And it actually seems to work quite well. And just keeping on top of it, to be honest, having a little small 1 gallon pump sprayer with the mix and unfortunately keeping on top of it.
And neighbors with dandelions and weeds, you can spend so much time and effort getting your lawn to look great. And then, you just feel like, well, their seeds are just blowing onto yours, their weeds. Is there anything you can do and to try and other than knock on their door?
Yeah. And I totally get that all the time. And it's just about competition. It's having a healthy lawn. And, kind of what I said earlier with, just kind of feeding it nitrogen all the time, it becomes an addict. So as soon as you stop that, it would only take like one season for it to just go back in reverse. It's restoring that biology, creating those defense systems for diseases and weeds and pests.
Okay, last two questions. We started a few minutes late. So is there anything to put in your gardens that will kill the weeds and not kill the plants?
Just the same thing. Like, you kind of have to be on top of it. I know we just really don't have access to the chemicals, but I'm not promoting chemicals. It's right. Again, just creating that biology. Like I would take my mix and definitely spray it on, I spray it on my plants here at home and my yard, and I would put it in gardens. It's totally safe for, any garden vegetables or anything like that, and just hand doing it, unfortunately.
Real quick, back to in between the interlock, would you recommend, a moss or something else that creeps in between to sort of kill the weeds? And is that an alternative?
I guess you could. It all depends on the type of look, right?
Mhm.
You know, and I would almost recommend too, like if it's an interlock, getting that sand re-put in every few years, because you know, if you're, you know, when people go to power wash, right, and the little kind of layer of sand, and then, you know, seeds will find anywhere to germinate, and they'll find those little crevices to get in there. So just even redoing your interlock with that sand, I would say, you know, every 2-3 years maybe.
Okay. And then the last question is, given it's been, I would say, an early spring, we've had, you know, really nice warm weather. Are we ahead? Should we be doing anything earlier right now that maybe we weren't doing until the beginning of May? Because it seems that the weather's got a bit of a head start on us. So what should we be doing to make sure we're on time with our lawns?
Be patient. I get this honestly the last few questions, and my clients have said, well, are you coming? When are you coming to do my first application? And it's actually really based on soil temperatures. And until we get to 15 degrees Celsius is kind of a constant, you know, like your lawn is starting to grow, but even if you're overseeding, I would not recommend overseeding right now, because it's not going to germinate. It's just going to sit there. The birds are going to eat it. It's going to blow in the wind. Until I would still wait another 2 weeks before we kind of really get into temperatures. I was looking at the long range here just before we got on this call, and it looks a little chillier next week, unfortunately, but I would just say have some patience.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I mean, that great tips. I loved all of the information, and I'm sure everyone on here was writing some stuff down as I was. So really appreciate that, Kendra, with On Par Turf. And for everybody else that's on, again, we're doing this every Wednesday workshops, and we've still got some great events coming up. Be sure to go to our newmarkethomeshow.ca website, check on the calendar of events. It's free, share it with your friends, and it's all about supporting local businesses like Kendra at a time when we certainly know you all need it. So thank you everyone again, and thanks for taking the time and spending a half an hour of your Wednesday with us.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody.